good morning and welcome to the Really Big Show for Wednesday, May 7th. My name is Josh Duncan and I am joined by Iain Burns out there in Ottawa. Overcast day here in Kelowna today. I think there's a chance of thunderstorms later on. Ottawa, how is the weather in the old capital treating you?
It's very similar, but about 7 degrees colder than Kelowna's going to be. So it's cloudy and 16-ish.
Oh, yeah, getting up to 24 in Kelowna today, so it might be a little muggy out there. Once again, I'm filling in for Jim Check, who is away right now. We're going to cover a few things today. Of course, that President Trump, Prime Minister Carney meeting at the White House. A little news from the Conservative front, but more so about another person, not Pierre Poilievre, Andrew Shear, named interim leader of the Conservatives, while Pierre fights for a seat. Danielle Smith, a little more on her and that infamous flight to Florida that we didn't find so infamous. A little China-U.S. trade talk chat. More hockey news. That's your bonus of getting me again. And then a few other tidbits here and there. So, let's start obviously with that Trump and Carney meeting in Washington yesterday. Iain, I should also clarify, no video again today. So you might get sick of Iain and I, but we're going to take what we can get and go from there. So, Iain, why don't you tell us a little bit about this meeting? You wrote about it yesterday. How'd it go down there?
I'd just say on the lack of video, you can now treat it like radio. You don't even have to look at us. So that's a bonus. That's a bonus for the audience.
Yeah, 100%. And that's actually my background, if people didn't know, a face for radio. So, just put us off to the side and just listen to us.
Yeah. About this meeting anyway, I mean, probably most people have had a look at it by now. I would imagine a lot of people have watched the whole thing because it wasn't even that long. It was only, what was it, like 25 minutes or something like that? Half an hour. Yeah. I would say it's hard for me to. I could give my impression of it, but I'm not sure what people will make of that because it's almost like a Rorschach test. It's kind of like various, depending on who you are, what your politics are. It seems you're going to have a different interpretation of what happened. Because some people are kind of like, oh yeah, Mark Carney like laid down the law. What a boss man! Like he said, we're never going to be the 51st state and all that. But then other people are saying, look, he barely said anything, and he kind of what he did say was actually quite wasn't really on brand. It wasn't very elbows up. It was kind of like, you're a transformative leader. You want to do the best for your workers. So it was very complimentary, and also saying that he'd done great work. Or what did he say? He'd revitalized NATO. It's not the kind of language that he's used on the campaign trail. So in that way, it's like, okay, he was a toady. He was kind of like, he failed and he just kind of licked up to Trump. But I think the reality is that when you deal with Donald Trump, you have to be a bit different. You have to put a different sort of personality on show. And for my money, I thought he did all right. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he. The only risk I suspect, or that when I was watching it, I thought the only risk here is that he might alienate some of his like very anti-Trump supporters. They might think that he was a bit soft, but then he got in that line, which I imagine he'd been practicing in the mirror in the hotel the whole time, where it was like, some things are not for sale, like that. Yeah. I think he got that in, and that was all over the news, and I think that satisfied the anti-Trump constituency, didn't it? But then in the real business of diplomacy, and when it comes to Donald Trump, the business of diplomacy means don't be a problem, don't contradict him, don't humiliate him, say nice things about him, make him feel good. In that sense, I think he did all right. And I must say, I mean, there's zero chance that this is ever going to come to pass. But if I was ever there representing Canada in the Oval Office, I probably would have done something similar. Really, just kind of like, just let him go on, like he'll blab, talk about Barack Obama's library in Chicago or something like that. Just get the clock down, and in the meantime, say things about him which sound very complimentary, like call him a transformative president, but which also could be negative, could also be interpreted in a bad way.
For sure. He chose his language carefully in that sense, where like you could almost argue that he might have been taking little digs at him, but I don't know, it's not really worth even focusing on that. At the end of the day, I agree with you, and I obviously noticed all the different takes on the meeting, and we talked about it a bit yesterday, how divisive just politics are right now. And I think that's like a special part of how divisive they are right now, is anyone that's so firmly on either side can take anything and make it into a positive or a negative. Like they can spin the narrative any way they want just to fit, how far right or far left they are. And there's people on both sides. So I thought similar. I mean, I liken it to, I mean, again, it's almost like dealing like a child. They're like your drunk friend at the bar, like where they just start ranting and like you try to get in there a couple times and you're like, well, like, that's not correct. Like the 200 billion, maybe that's not right. But then eventually you're just like, all right, well, this guy's just making himself look like a bit of a dummy. Let's just let him speak. And, nothing's going to get done in a 30-minute, televised meeting in the Oval Office. So at the end of the day, like, yeah, maybe some people would have liked to see Carney speak a little more, but I mean, we saw what happened with Zelensky and the reaction to that, and people found positives and negatives to that. So it's just one of those things, like meeting with Trump is unlike meeting with any other world leader, and it's not going to be your classic kind of, just really diplomatic, like, oh yeah, we love everything, and all these countries have great, relationships, and this, like, it's different with Trump at the end of the day. So, it's not going to follow a certain script, and I thought it went okay, and at the end of the day, nothing's going to get done in that 30 minutes, so we'll see what happens behind the scenes and moving forward, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you just have to ask yourself, like, a lot of people are disappointed from both sides, from the left and the right, though mostly from the right, if you can say that, even kind of mostly from the anti-Carney side, are disappointed and thought that he embarrassed himself. But I mean, they were always gonna hate this anyway, weren't they? I don't think it really matters particularly what Carney does. They're gonna hate him anyway. But I just thought, when you think about it from a sort of practical, and he always says this about himself, doesn't he, Carney? He always says, I'm a pragmatist. So if you think about it from a pragmatic perspective, what is there actually to be gained from opening your mouth in the Oval Office when you're sat next to Donald Trump? I mean, you have to think about that. There's a few little, give him compliments, and then get a little sound bite in to show that you're standing up to him. Those are they probably had a little presentation. They probably had a PowerPoint presentation, didn't they? Where it was like, these are our two objectives. We want to, make Trump feel good, be nice to him, so that he's in a good mood, and that his supporters are in a good mood as well, feel good towards Canada, and then also kind of gently slap him down on the sovereignty question. And that must have been their two targets, and also maybe like, don't get Zelensky'd. Don't get like screamed at. Don't cause a fight. And in that sense, he did it all, really, didn't he? Because as you said, that wasn't a negotiation. That wasn't that didn't matter in any true sense. It was all just for show. It was all just a pantomime. Yeah. And in that sense, he played his character in that pantomime probably about as well as you could, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I was thinking a bit yesterday, and I think it's a delicate situation in a way where, yeah, there's a lot of like, screw America, and we don't need them for anything. And yes, I think we definitely want to explore bigger partnerships with other countries and kind of stand our ground during this Trump presidency. But unless crazy stuff happens, there will be a new president, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, in 3-4 years. And at the end of the day, we're not going to move forward for several decades without, being a close partner of the state. So you might as well try to make it work. Yeah, you want to stand up to them, but also not like completely alienate any kind of relationship with the states. Let's get through these 4 years, and then maybe things will change. But that's looking further, and obviously not a big thing right now. But I think there's a lot more strategy to meeting, with a guy like Trump and handling these kind of U.S.-Canada dynamics right now than just like going down there and being like, hey, screw you, like, we're going to be fine, and walking off.
Yeah. But that's what many Canadian prime ministers have said, that's in many ways kind of like the main job. The main responsibility of the job is to manage this sort of like gigantic orangutan, as it is in this case, or gorilla on other occasions, or elephant, or whatever you want to say, down in the White House. It's all about trying to manage that. And if you're interested in geopolitics, you can see why, because America has the whip hand over Canada, and it pretty much always will. That's just a fact of reality, isn't it? I suppose the area where Carney has exposed himself to criticism is that he campaigned as the tough guy. He made Trump the absolute center of the whole thing, the whole campaign. His the reason to elect him over anybody else, particularly Polyev, who he said was kind of like what did he say, a worshipper or something like that, or a, he implied that Polyev really loved Trump. There's no
Mhm.
evidence of that, but he heavily implied that, and then he also said, I'm the tough guy, and our relationship with the United States is over, and all this sort of dramatic language. And then he's gone down there, and he's like best mates with Trump, and he's kind of very nice to him. I guess that's the only criticism that you could direct towards him. But what I would say to that is, frankly, that's just politics. I mean, if you, I'm sorry to be a little bit insulting here, but if you were stupid enough to vote for Mark Carney because you thought he was going to be the guy that was hard on Trump while Polyev would be soft, then this is all over your head anyway. Like I don't think you understand anything about politics. Sorry,
Yeah,
you should pick another sport because you don't understand. That was for the plebs. That was the cheap garbage for the audience, where it's like, damn that Trump. That's obviously not what he really thought. He obviously had a real plan that was beyond elbows up. But so I feel like for those people, and for anybody that's saying, look at this hypocrisy, I would just say Carney was just playing the game. And in
Mhm.
a way, that's why Polyev lost, because Polyev didn't play the game. He stuck to his principles, ironically. He was a bit more honest. So
Yeah,
it's
no,
just how it is, really.
I
It's
also
politics.
think like yeah, there's a lot of talk elbows up, but like I said, I think that also dealing with Trump doesn't necessarily mean going down there and handling him, like taking him out back and jerseying him and giving him a couple uppercuts. Like, there's a lot of ways to handle this kind of president and this kind of situation. And I don't think you have to handle it with aggression. So in that sense, like I see it as a fairly positive. Like I look at what he said to reporters after, and you could kind of tell he gave a bit of a couple kind of snarky remarks, almost being like, "I'm glad you couldn't tell what I was thinking in there." Like, so I do think in a way he's trying to deliver, on the promise of dealing with Trump, but it's just not going to be. I think that narrative became for a lot of people, like you said, like, oh, he's going to go down there and whip him into shape, and Canada's going to be the tough guy, and we're not going to. That's just not how it works. It was never going to work
No.
like that. And yeah, if that's 100% what you voted on, you were like, yeah, he's going to go tell him to F off and we're going to be good and we're going to do all this stuff. Like, that's just not what was going to happen. So yeah, I agree with you there. If you voted for exactly that situation, you were a little bit in a fantasy land.
Yeah. Well, the reality is, look, Carney is like a little he's a little spider monkey trying to have a fight with a gorilla. You have to, if a spider monkey is going to win that fight, he can't just go run over and smack the gorilla with his elbow. He has to be very clever about it.
Yeah.
Has to be the gorilla's friend, or appear to be. And I suppose like that was what I was trying to say in my critique. It's kind of Carney never really um he never really revealed that that's how he thought. I mean, most politics watchers knew that's how he thought, because he wanted to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and what he was at the time. And if you the Prime Minister of Canada, you can't go down and start fights with the US, because you'll lose, because they're
Mm-hmm.
too big and powerful, and they have our they have our head in a vice in so many ways. But Carney kind of gave the impression that it was like, we can just go to Europe, America needs us loads, and all. It's kind of like, and some other things where it was kind of like he referred to Trump, the Trump moment right now, as being like a hysteria or something in America, or something like that, a fever pitch or something.
Mm-hmm.
He sent some jabs down there, and it's kind of like he did that to win support in Canada, and obviously that was a success. And now he's going to actually be honest and pragmatic. So I suppose that's the criticism. It's kind of like you campaigned on one thing, and now you're going to govern in a different way. But
Mm-hmm.
my my perspective is what I just said really earlier on, which is that's just politics. If you're new to this sport, then get ready for a lot more of that, a lot more disappointment, and a lot more hypocrisy, because that's basically all that politics is.
Yeah, my favorite is a lot of people online will be like, "Oh, if I was down there, I would have done this, and he should have done this." It's like, no, you wouldn't have. Like, come on, like,
No.
And
And
I
also, you
think,
have to remember, like, Trump is like, you might have this anger towards Trump, but if you saw the way that he behaved, he's capable of being like actually very charming and friendly and like, like he said really nice things about Carney. So it's kind of like even if you wanted to go there and be like, and start a fight, it's hard because he's different in person. He's when he's on Truth Social versus when he's sat next to you.
yes.
You would seem like the instigator. You would seem like a sort of aggressive, weird person because he's
Oh
so
yeah.
like friendly and nice and cheerful, isn't he, in person?
Yeah, well, for sure, and it's all like it's like a giant business deal, really, with him. And obviously, a lot of this is business, but he's a businessman. Like he's been a businessman, just like Carney is an economist. It's those backgrounds don't just fade. And Trump treats everything very craftily. And yeah, he's getting older, and maybe a little more senile at times, but everything's still kind of like a crafty, forged way to do business, and you got to be careful around that. Also, quickly to one point, and I don't know, do we have more slides on this? Should we start filing through them? But
Yeah, we can keep moving. It's going to be this topic for a little while, but yeah, we
yeah,
can.
it doesn't hit quite as hard without the videos, so we'll have to work through that. But I saw, and I should have found this for the show, so I apologize. Maybe I'll try to find it for tomorrow, or if you saw it on Twitter, or X, you can maybe speak to it. But I saw something about our exports down to the States are kind of cut in half from like 6 to 3%, but they're up from like 8 to 24 in Europe. And obviously those are, they've tripled to other parts of the world, I guess it was, not just Europe. And obviously those are very different numbers. Like, the 3% drop in American exports could actually be more. I don't have the details than the 3 times increase in Europe, but it does seem like Canada has somewhat adjusted in the last couple months and increase some shipping elsewhere in the world. Again, I'll try to find that. I should have found it before the show. Maybe we can go into it more tomorrow.
Yeah, I've got something here from the Globe and Mail, which is Canadian exports tumbled 6.6%, while let's have a look. So they fell 6.6% and increased elsewhere. I can't see what the increase is, but yeah, so 6.6%. I mean, that's quite big. But when the context here to bear in mind is that the vast majority of Canadian exports go to the US, and
Yeah.
only a tiny fraction go anywhere else. So
Yeah.
for a 6.6 decline, 6.6% decline, it might sound like a lot, but it's kind of like you've chipped a tiny stone off, the Empire State Building or something like that. It's like it's so high in terms of our markets, whereas Europe and the rest of it in Asia, I mean, it's a bit tragic, really. It shouldn't be this way, but they're minnows. We barely send anything to them. So even if that increased, okay, so here we go. So 25% actually was the increase.
Yeah. But that 6.6,
That'll
I
be
think,
that to
still is,
non-US countries.
yeah. That
But
6.6
yeah,
is
that's
still
like
probably a bigger
25%. That's
number.
like a 25% increase in growth on like a 2-story building or something. It's like
Yeah, compared
versus
to
the
the
Empire
chip
State
off
Building.
the
So
Empire. Yeah.
obviously yeah, but it's still, this is a consequence of um Trump's policies, obviously, and it just shows that obviously like Canadian businesses are trying to diversify, because obviously it's not the government that is selling this stuff. This is businesses.
Mhm.
But usually it's because, like, what do they say? But it's like they say capital takes this sort of the path of least resistance, something like that. Economists like to say, and that's true. They don't care about like businesses and people who are involved in money, merchants, the merchant class. They don't care at all about who's the president or whatever. They don't care about politics. They just care about like the path of least resistance, and the
Money.
tariffs and the rest of it create resistance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're running into a bit of course, bit of video issues with YouTube. You're still sticking around, so that's good. We apologize for that if that's an issue. Anything else we want to talk about on this? I feel like we have a couple more things. Again, without the video, it's tough. But is there anything else we want to dive into on this Trump Carney meeting before we move on to more local things?
Well, we've got this thing here saying, CTV News here saying that they spoke to a body language expert who says that Trump showed respect. So there you go.
I could I feel like I should play the role of Jim, where he would not have good things to say about that CTV article.
It's funny because when I was at the Daily Mail, or Mail Online, they used to always do that. They used to have the numbers lying around with language experts, and whenever it was often applied to Trump, but like the royal family as well. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because they obviously they've got their own thing to sell. Often it's like a book or something like that they want to sell. But
yeah.
I don't know, body language expert. It's kind of, you can be a body language expert, but are you a Trump body language expert? Because that's got to be a like completely separate sector.
That's a master's degree after your like original degree. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a body language expert, so I won't comment. But yeah, I guess it looked like he showed respect. It's hard to tell. I don't know. It's a tough one. Sometimes they just get stretched for stories. Like, all right, like you said, like, all right, let's call our body language expert. Like, do we really need that news story? Probably not. But yeah.
Sometimes, like, I think they did it for the Prince Andrew interview, if you remember that one, where he quite unwisely sat down to talk about the Epstein business.
Yeah.
And that was just just a nightmare interview for him from his perspective. But he was sat there like sweating like a, you know what. And he was kind of like, he looked nervous and he looked like he was kind of losing it a bit, didn't he? And that was funny to get a body language expert in. But I mean, all the expert would do in that situation is tell you what you already knew, really. We kind of instinctively know that, don't we? We don't need to be told.
Yeah, you don't need a body language expert for most of this. Like, you can just kind of, I think, look at them and be like, all right, well, that's what I take. Or in the Prince Andrew case, that guy's sweating through his shirt.
While saying that he doesn't sweat as well. But yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, then we had National Post. We kind of covered this, but bombastic sham. That was quite, maybe we don't have that slide. There it is. A bombastic sham. Feels like a British kind of saying. Is it?
Yeah. Well, National Post was started by an Englishman, I believe, wasn't it?
There you go.
I can't remember his name now.
Yeah. But we already kind of talked about this.
You know, that's what that's doing is what I said in it. My critique. It's just saying, like, he campaigned on a false promise. Which I guess you could be upset about that, like I said. But to be upset about that, you have to be kind of a bit green. You have to be new to politics to be upset about that. Because anybody with any idea about politics knew that was all guff. That was all a load of nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then moving on to the next slide. I believe this is the one where, again, we don't have the video, but I think this was someone, or at least interviewing someone that was quite upset that Carney spoke for 3 minutes and Trump spoke for 30 minutes. But again, we've kind of covered that. And, this person said, thank you for letting Donald Trump embarrass all of Canada for half an hour. Again, he's going to try to embarrass Canada. Oh, we did get some audio. Anyways, we'll move on from that. But, yeah, I mean, Donald Trump, whether it's on Truth Social or in the White House or wherever he is, he's going to try to embarrass, anyone he wants, and that doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually happening or going to happen. It's just Donald Trump. So, yeah. All right. Anything else on Trump, Carney?
There's one more from Blackbox here, which.
Oh yeah.
Blackbox they're very doubtful of the federal government and everything they do, which is what they should be, I suppose. They kind of, in many ways, serve as the kind of media opposition to the government. But they're just coming out and highlighting. They're highlighting probably like the meatiest part of this Oval Office chat, which is where Trump said, "There's nothing Carney can do to make me lift the tariffs." And then he also said, Canada kind of has to look after itself economically. We're not going to do it, nothing. And they're just highlighting that and how kind of dangerous, I guess, that is for Canada and the Canadian economy. So that's kind of the meat bit, but that's nothing new either. We already knew all this. It's just he said it with Carney sat next to him for the first time.
Yeah, and we actually don't have this slide, so apologize for that. But yeah, this was just kind of he even name dropped Governor Trudeau in this part as kind of like a show of, yeah, this is just what I've been saying all along, you know, like, so it was nothing new. It was just him saying we don't need anything from Canada and all that. But yeah.
And then he hates Chrystia Freeland, which again we already knew, but it takes a bit of chutzpah to say that to Carney, doesn't it?
I was gonna say he had to know the relationship there, right? Like the godparent and everything. That was that felt like a bit of a personal cheap shot, but
yeah. And then I mean, I suppose in that sense, I have to say, and this transcends pragmatism and like being a savvy politician and all that. If somebody like brutally slags off one of your best friends like that right next to you, I have to say, I don't care if I was a prime minister, I would have to say something. I'd have to say, you know, like you're talking about Chrystia Freeland there, and she's like she's a wonderful woman, and you know, just say something like that. You know, I feel like that's what I would do. Somebody's like slagging off my Bezzy, even if it's Donald Trump. You kind of like the sense of honor sort of dictates that you say something. Surely, even if it's a pretty sort of measured remark.
yeah, I mean, I agree there. But also again, it's just the Trump. Like, imagine the reaction if he did say something in that moment, like, "Hey, like, I'm the godparent to her children," or like, I forget which way that relationship goes, but like, oh man, that could have been even funnier than the Zelensky moment.
Like, yeah, but I'm thinking like
just
the way
fighting
that
over Freeland. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, every part of me says you should probably say something there.
He could even have phrased it similar to the way that because he kind of he was careful, wasn't he, when he rejected the 51st state talk, because he was like, you know, as you know, with real estate, blah 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 blah. It was kind of like he brought him in on it, didn't he? So it wasn't just Carney attacking him. It was kind of, he recruited Trump to his point, and then he made his point in a very deferential way. But I feel like in that he could have done the same thing. He could have said like, I have to say, Mr. President, with all respect, that you're discussing one of my very close friends, and I'm sure you understand. Like you often defend your friends, so I'm going to have to defend my friend here and say that, you know, she's a great person, and I'm sorry that you two didn't get along. Mm-hmm. That's what he should have said.
That is true. That's what he should have said. That was very good. Yeah. I wonder if he was
caught. Body language expert, Matt.
Body language expert, Iain Burns. I wonder if he was caught a little off guard by that one. I
think he was caught off guard by a lot of it. Have you seen there's a video where it's just his reactions, and he's kind of like going, and he's like, he wants to say something, but he stops himself.
I was saying earlier about like the friend at a bar where you're just like trying to get in, and you're like, you know what, whatever. Like, this guy is on one. We'll chat in the morning. All right, well, let's leave the Trump Carney stuff in the past. I'm sure there'll be more on that front, or at least the front of those two in tomorrow's show. Let's move on closer to home. Andrew Shear is going to be the interim leader of the opposition in the House of Commons, the Conservative caucus, because, of course, Pierre Poilievre is working to get his seat back. I'm sure he will get his seat back in Alberta. It'll take a little time. So for now, Shear is back on top of the Conservative Party.
Back in the saddle. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a perfect... People thought this might happen. I think Jim actually predicted this one as well. But a few people predicted this one because... he's already been the leader, so he's kind of like, he's neutered in that sense, isn't he, to use a rather crude metaphor. He's like, he's already had his shot and he lost. He's not going to be a challenge. He's not a threat.
True.
You know, whereas maybe Melissa Lantsman or whatever, some of the other ones, they might have done a good job, like almost too good of a job, and then people might have thought, see you later, Pierre.
Oh, wait, I have a sports reference to try to be like Jim, a coaching reference. It's like when a guy gets injured and then someone jumps in as like the healthy scratch comes in and scores, 4 goals in 5 games when the guy's hurt. Or say a pitcher in baseball like has a couple really good starts and the guy never gets his job back. So there's my my Jim sports reference for the day. But yeah, I didn't even actually think
She's like a retired old. He wasn't even very good when he was a number one. When he was like a starter, so it's like no worries.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I've obviously noticed over the last few months in the campaign, like Shear has been very, very vocal. Like, I feel like he's been more passionately conservative and campaigning like for Pierre than he ever did for himself. Almost like he seems like a whole new person.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't
he's
know,
just one of
maybe.
those. It's like you get this in life. He's obviously good within the group, and he does what the group likes,
Hmm.
but he doesn't have that the leadership
Yeah,
instinct. Not everybody does, you know. It's usually it's only a pretty small minority of people in any group has the ability to actually lead, and Shear
yeah.
didn't have it. So that's it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that same impression with him for sure. So yeah, I guess he'll be good in the interim. As we covered yesterday, we don't know exactly how long that'll last. But yeah, until Pierre returns to the House of Commons. Anything else on that front before we hop to our friend Danielle Smith?
Now let's hop to her.
The top tour. So we talked about this a bit yesterday. The business class flight down to visit Trump's inauguration. It was $10,000. Ian and I really didn't think that was a crazy price for 4 people. I don't know if that was just flights or flights, but really not that crazy. But now there's more. There's a health reason behind it, which obviously this isn't funny, but it's kind of a. You read the story and you kind of smile. You're like, okay, like had to put his feet up.
Well, he says he has a health condition that increases his risk of blood clots. So, I mean, if that's true, I presume he's got a doctor's note for that.
Yes.
Then what are you going to do? I mean, like the more I read the story, the more ridiculous it seems. Frankly,
Yes.
a 2-day stop, like flights and stay, 2 days in Florida for 4 people, cost 10 grand.
Yeah.
In many ways, actually, I kind of like. I think I might send Danielle Smith an email and say, like, how the hell did you arrange that? Did she stay in a motel or something? How did she make that happen?
Yeah, for an average for an average citizen, yeah, that might be like, okay, you maybe got a little glamorous, like found a nice hotel or whatever, but like for 4 like members of the Alberta like government, that's a cheap price, especially when you look at like sometimes what the federal government and Trudeau used to spend on trips abroad. Like it can, when you have people that are just used to like writing off everything and not really like shopping. It's not like I'm going on vacation, I'm shopping for the best possible price, so I'm not broke when I get home. You know, most of the time these politicians are just going, all right, yeah, book this business class, like 4-star hotel, whatever. We don't care what it costs. And maybe that's a cynical look, but it seems to be the reality. $10,000 for 4 people for a couple days, flights and stays in Florida does not give that impression to me. So
Definitely not. I mean, anybody that, especially, going down to America these days, it costs an absolute fortune to go there because the economies have diverged to such an extent that, the Canadian dollar and Canadian earning power doesn't really go that far in America anymore, does it? So
that's true.
I'm not even remotely bothered, I must say, myself. I'm not an Alberta taxpayer, but as a Canadian taxpayer, and I also think, your leaders, and that includes Justin Trudeau, even him, leaders of Canada should be afforded a certain amount of dignity in the way that they go around the world because they don't represent themselves, they represent us. So
Mm-hmm.
if they're going around and they're staying in like the most garbage, filthy motel and like driving around on a moped or something like that, that humiliates us, not them necessarily, So
Yeah.
I think we should like chill out a bit and let them like project a certain amount of dignity because it's in our interests as well as Canadians.
And also when it comes down to it, like I don't remember the numbers on Trudeau stuff, but say it's, $80,000 for like a week for a bunch of them to go to, England and meet the king or whatever it is. That's such a minuscule, like penny amount for every citizen. And yeah, you don't want to spend that, daily or anything. But we have much bigger issues of where our tax dollars, or not issues, some might say, but much bigger things that our tax dollars are being spent on that people may agree or disagree with. At the end of the day, a few $1,000 here and there for a trip, or upgrading to first class or whatever it is really not going to make a dent on anyone's pockets. So there are bigger things to worry about than slightly expensive trips.
And it's also the bread and butter of like government, isn't it? That we need them to go and have conversations with like Europeans and Americans and all that. We don't want to be a hermit kingdom, do we? Where we're just like North Korea, don't speak to anyone.
Yeah. You imagine like Carney and a bunch of people go to England, say to meet the king, and they're staying at this like 2-star bed and breakfast, like 90 minutes outside of London. It's all we could get, We were only afforded like 10 grand. But Martha, who runs the place, really nice, like really good scrambled eggs. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the Canadians can stay in. I think they can stay in Canada House, can't they? That in Trafalgar Square. I think that's an
Yeah.
option. Or there's some other like pretty glitzy building that they can stay in. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think moving local now. Do we have the cat story, Rommel? We'll get to that. We'll get to the colorful one. Yeah, so this one, Megan wrote this yesterday. It's local-ish. I think it's BC Interior, but 83 Persian cats. How does this woman have 83? And obviously, rest in peace. It's sad she died or that he died. I actually didn't look. Maybe that was bad of me, just assuming it was a woman. But you know, the crazy cat lady means. But 83 freaking cats. That's insane, and they were not in good shape. Which is, we do a lot of BC SPCA stories, and it's shocking sometimes how many animals this organization has to rescue, and just it's sad seeing what kind of shape some of them are in. If you go to their story, you can see more photos, and I believe they'll be up for adoption. Some in the Kamloops area, but I think province-wide, right? Some are down in Surrey, and you can look at the BC SPCA adoption page. They said over the next few weeks, once they heal up, they'll be ready for adoption. So a bit of a sad story here with the owner's death and so many cats just kind of living in squalor. But yeah, if you're looking to maybe adopt a cat and rescue a cat, maybe keep an eye out for these ones to become available on the BC SPCA website.
The one on the right there looks in good nick. Quite a handsome little cat.
True,
so you can have
actually.
that one.
It looks like it's up to something.
Got his hand somewhere. What's that wandering hand?
Kind of looks like Mark Carney. Maybe just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's a bit serious.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, anyways, if you want a cat, look at the BC SPCA website in the near future. But good on the organization to rescue those cats. And also on that note, always looking for donations for the BC SPCA because they do get some funding, but they do a lot of work and could always use more funding. All right, what else we got here? I think we are fully local now. This one, I think this is now the PNE lineups, Rommel. Yes. So this is exciting. This just happened, and this for at least our Kelowna viewers, maybe there's some in Vancouver as well, but this is the annual PNE Summer Night concert series, which at the end of August when the fair opens down in Vancouver, they have a concert every night, and they get some pretty cool names. And it's a nice mix. They've managed to do a nice mix. You know, there's some older acts like Leonard Skinner and Gypsy Kings. Counting Crows, I guess, are getting up to kind of classic rock status, if that makes you feel old. Tom Cochrane, Foreigner, but also some hipper acts, if I may say so, as a 34-year-old. Rainbow Kitten Surprise. They're a pretty cool indie band. Leon Bridges, very cool, kind of like a soulful singer. I'm sure you've heard some of his music. I don't know, maybe
Foreigner, man, that's a big one.
That's one of the classics, kind of them, you know, Tom Cochrane. Sean Paul, I'm sure that would be a fun show. And these are all at the outdoor amphitheater down there at the PNE. So it is a really cool, if you're down in Vancouver in the last half of August, obviously the PNE Fair is fun to check out. But these shows every night are pretty good as well. Megan Trainor, it's all about that bass, I think was her song. I don't know. I used to play her on the radio.
Isn't she that one that was a meme because she was like so bad? Or is that someone else?
No, I think that's Rebecca Black you're thinking of with Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
Friday.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, Mariana's Trench. I'm sure that one will get a lot of 30-something-year-olds who really, you know, resonated with Mariana's Trench in the mid-2000s and some of that emo music. So yeah, some exciting names on here. Always fun to do a trip down to Vancouver in the last half of August for the PNE and these shows. So something to look into. All right, hockey news. You're stuck with me for another couple days. This is actually quite funny because I mentioned hockey stuff and Utah winning part of the draft lottery yesterday, and Iain was shocked that Utah has a hockey team. Well, they just actually finally revealed their name this morning. It is, as I mentioned yesterday, as it was expected, the Utah Mammoth. And that is their home jersey on the left, their away jersey on the right. The logo, I don't know. It doesn't wow me. It looks a lot like the Nashville Predators logo. I don't know if you know that one, but if you're watching at home, you can look it up. It's just a saber-toothed tiger, same direction, but instead of the tusks going up, it's a tooth going down. So they look very similar. But I don't know. I guess they're nice. Not as nice as the old. So Utah moved basically from Arizona, and Arizona had those like really cool Kachina jerseys. So it's a bit of a downgrade on those, but yeah. And Ian, I don't know, maybe our viewers too, but I think Utah really wanted to be the Yeti. They're going after that mythical creature, but Yeti, like the cooler and water bottle brand, basically told them to screw off. They were like, no. Like they applied to like share the trademark, and they're like, absolutely not. So they shifted, and they are the Utah Mammoth. And yeah, that will be.
So you've basically just got to choose an animal that lives in cold weather, because I know there's the penguins, isn't there? Is that New York? New York Penguins?
Pittsburgh
Penguins. There you go. And alliteration helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, it's actually kind of funny too, because this is the 32nd like NHL team basically. The 31st team, the last expansion team was Seattle, and they chose the Kraken. So I think we're into the stage of only mythical and/or extinct animals. So if Phoenix does get a team back, maybe it'll be the Phoenix.
Yeah, that's what they should. I was going to say Phoenix makes sense, doesn't it?
That would be quite cool.
When is there going to be another Canadian one? When are we going to get the Rockets in the NHL?
Oh, that'd be fun. I don't know. There's always talk about Quebec, but I just don't think, at least under this commissioner, they seem to really want to tackle, a few U.S. markets like Utah and Seattle. They've done. It's long been talk about Houston. Ian's gone. But yeah, I think they're, a team could come back to Quebec City and I'm sure do very, very well. Or you could put another team in Southern Ontario and it would do really, really well. Like you could have two Toronto teams and they both do well. I think the issue is that the NHL wants to make its mark in the States and continue to push for expansion into, markets like Houston, markets like Seattle and Utah. So unfortunately, I think we might be stuck at 7 Canadian teams for a while, but you never know.
Let's get the Windsor Werewolves.
The Windsor Werewolves. I like. You're just stuck on the alliterations now.
But it's got to be alliterative. I don't see any point. I don't know what Quebec could do though. Well, the Quebec Kraken. Just do it. Nick it.
The Quebec. Yeah, there's not a lot that starts with the Q. We just got a message. Someone telling us to stop talking about hockey. So don't worry. Jim's back later this week or Monday or something. You'll be rid of me. I actually do have one more quick hockey thing, but this is local, so it's kind of cool for our Kelowna viewers, if there are any out there. Tyson Jugnoth, who is from Kelowna. The Jugnoth family, I think, is fairly active in the Kelowna community. I believe Tyson's brother, I forget his name, plays hockey. I think his sister is a high-level athlete as well. Tyson was named WHL Defenseman of the Year, which is very cool in its own. He's also the first person ever to win Defenseman of the Year in both the WHL and the BCHL. He won the award in 2022, playing for his hometown team, the West Kelowna Warriors. So very cool for Tyson. I think he's finished up his junior career now. The Winterhawks just lost in the conference final. So he'll be heading off and joining. He was drafted by the Seattle Kraken, so he'll probably be playing for their AHL team next year. Always very cool to see these local athletes go on and do big things, and Tyson is doing a lot of big things. So good for him, and hopefully we'll see him wearing a Kraken jersey or another NHL jersey in the near future. That's all I got.
Good for you, Tyson.
That's all the hockey. I'm done. You can, yeah. All right, anything else? Do we have memes? I know Jim likes his memes. Is he putting any in there?
Oh, we've got this in the market section here. We've got something about China and the US.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you go on that?
Well, the Chinese, Trump has been saying for ages, hasn't he? His line on China was something along the lines of they want to make a deal, they're desperate to make a deal, but they just don't know how, which I find quite a strange thing to say about China. But now apparently they're going to meet. So one of the sort of senior members of the Chinese Communist Party, the vice premier, He Lifeng, is going to meet with Scott Bessent, who's a Treasury Secretary, in Switzerland week, actually. So on Friday. Yeah, on Friday. So they're going to meet over the weekend, and they're going to try to come to some kind of arrangement because obviously, at the moment, except for like certain things that Trump exempted, which like Apple products and stuff, certain electronics. Other than that, trade between the US and China is in effect now impossible. It's like 100+ % tariffs both ways, which effectively makes it like, except for maybe the extreme luxury market where people don't care what the price is or something like that. But
Hmm.
in reality, that's it, isn't it? Because if a TV, like if the Chinese were selling a TV or something for like $300, if it goes up to 600, then it's just completely lost in the market. It's not going to, a Korean one or something or whatever, a different TV is then going to win the price battle, isn't it?
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna say
usually the
like,
only good thing about Chinese stuff is that it's cheap, and now it's not.
it's
So
yeah. Is it reflected
they're
already?
gonna have
Like,
to figure that out.
is it reflected already on like? I did see stuff about like Amazon now showing like tariff cost and it being pretty big, but like, are iPhones jumping up in price or TVs or whatever it is? Like, is that already kind of taken effect in the States?
Well, they exempted Trump because obviously Trump's kind of in the pocket a little bit, if I may be so crude, of the tech people.
Hmm.
And obviously Apple is, they call it the Magnificent Seven, don't they? Like Apple, Google, Facebook, all those tech companies. If you look at the US stock markets, they're basically like, they account for so much of the stock markets because they're so massive. They're such gigantic companies. So when they started to squeal, I think Trump, for various reasons, including those two reasons, just said, all right, I'll exempt it then. So he exempted that. But I think, yeah, I mean, Apple. There was news came out not so long ago that Apple had like stocked up huge stocks of stuff that they need, that they just flown it in on like emergency planes to try and beat the tariffs. So
Oh.
I imagine other companies have done that as well. But tends to be the case when you're a company. It doesn't matter what you sell, whether it's like toys or laptops or whatever it is. Usually, you get your stock in like a few months in advance. So I think a lot of it's yet to filter through. But for some of these like just in time supply chains and all the rest of it, yeah, I imagine that they've passed it on already. And I have seen stories. I've seen a number of stories out of the US where people are like looking at products that used to be cheap and are no longer. But
Hmm.
obviously, that's kind of what Trump wants in a sense. He wants that to happen so that people don't pick Chinese products, so that they pick American in his sort of ideal scenario. But obviously, Americans don't tend to manufacture a lot of the cheaper stuff because there's just no point in doing it. That's why we have globalization. But obviously, Trump didn't really understand that or didn't like that.
Yeah, it doesn't like that, I think. Well, yeah, you'd have to assume he understands it, but yeah, doesn't like it. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
and
that's
that's why
interesting.
those memes were created of like obese Americans in sweatshops, like manufacturing like socks or whatever.
Well, what a perfect transition into our the meme segment of the show to finish things off here. I think this one is a video, unfortunately, so we may be out on this meme. Yeah, it is. So,
That's them meeting, isn't it? Oh, all right, that meme.
so this one from the National Roast.
To be
Wee
honest,
Man Mark.
there's an interesting point to be made there, which is that Donald Trump is supposedly like, what is he? He says that he's 6'3", I think.
He
Is that
says he's
right? Or
like the
two?
same.
6'2"?
He says he's the same like height and weight as like Saquon Barkley, who's like a really
Yeah,
good running
but
back in the NFL.
yeah, I mean, he's obviously got a bit of heft. He
Yeah.
likes his cheeseburgers, doesn't he? He's a big McDonald's fan, and you can tell. And also, I don't think he is 6'2" or 6'3" because he stands next to like Macron, and I know Macron wears like high heels or whatever, but you can't make up that difference with big shoes.
Yeah.
He's obviously not 6'3" or whatever. Like he looks about 5'11" or something. And I don't know why he's lying about that. It's so
I
weird.
didn't the NYPD come out or something and be like, "Well, we have his height and weight because we booked him for all his convictions," and he's like, it was maybe like 6 feet and like 280 or something. Like, I
Right.
mean, he's fairly healthy for what is he 80? Like, how old is he? 80,
He's 79, I think, or
79,
78 or
almost 80.
79.
Like, yeah, like he's not like he's in pretty good shape for an 80-year-old. I don't know why either if he's lying about his height and weight, but I mean it is
But it's
Trump.
also he gets his doctor, doesn't he, to come out, and every time he gets his doctor to come out and say like, "It's the healthiest man I ever saw, I ever, did a test on." It's like, come on,
Well,
It doesn't. He doesn't like. Nobody cares. Like you say, he's nearly 80. I expect he's shrunk a little bit, as because that happens, of course, where it's part of life. But I
yeah,
just feel like Trump is one of these people, one of these big like alpha business dogs that doesn't want to give the appearance to anyone that he's older or old or that he's aged or anything. It's like nothing's changed. He wants to make it seem like he's still like the Trump of 40 years ago or something like that.
100%. But yeah, the doctor stuff is quite funny. I remember a couple months ago when the doctor came out with all that info. My wife, who is a nurse, we were just on the couch like watching TV, and after work one day, and she like audibly laughed, and I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, I just saw Trump's blood pressure." Like, there's just no way. It was like perfect blood pressure, like better than like mine and my wife's. So I was like, "Yeah, I don't think that's accurate." But
I mean, that's kind of embarrassing, isn't it, for the United States? Because we're supposed to believe these professionals and stuff, and we're supposed to believe the White House, like generally anyway. We know that they tell fibs about some things, but that's like something that you associate more with like Russia, isn't it? Where it's like, Putin's in excellent health, even though he's obviously got like Parkinson's or whatever the hell. Like,
yeah.
usually you expect that from a dictatorship, so it's sad that they're doing it in America. But then again, you wouldn't, if you were on the inside, you wouldn't want to tell everybody that Trump was like sick if he was sick, would you? Because that would be
Yeah, I guess
quite bad too.
I don't understand that for sure. I mean, my favorite like sad thing about the current administration down south is the White House Twitter account, which is basically like, I'm sure it's run by an adult, but it looks like it's run by a 13-year-old angsty boy.
A troll.
It's just so crazy that like the official White House account is just like, yeah, I don't know. It's not something that affects me, so it doesn't bother me, but I just see it and I'm like, oh my God, like really?
Yeah. What's meme? They do chat GPT memes, don't they? Isn't that where they did the Trump as the Pope? Was that on the White House one as well?
I can't remember if that was on the White House. It might have been. Like, there's a good chance.
They tend to retweet, even if it was Trump. They tend to like retweet it just so it's like, look at this.
And then like, yeah, all sorts like fire emojis and like certain things that when I say them to like buddies and group chats with like weird emojis or this and that, I'm like, am I too old for this? And I see the White House account doing it, I'm like, no, I'm just hip.
It's come back around, doesn't it? That's what's happened.
Yeah, really, really. Any more memes here, Rommel? What do we got here? Elbows up, elbows down.
How it started, how it's going.
Yeah.
That's a very silly thing to do, isn't it? That, as in terms of gestures, I'm not a fan of that.
He looked pretty funny dancing around. Like, good for him. I know he was happy, and it's nice to see a politician let him loose and dance. But he looked quite funny for a lot of that celebration.
It was a cringe fest, doesn't it? But thankfully, from his perspective, he can be grateful that his wife is like at least 10 times cringier than he is. Yeah. So she just kind of took all the attention.
Maybe that's why
she was kind of like she looked like she was kind of like folding and unfolding.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube.
Yeah, outside of a car dealership.
Yeah. All right, I think we got at least one more meme. I mean, I don't even know if that's a meme. That's just true.
Yeah, we all know that feeling. I don't know what are they trying to. I'm not sure what the joke is here per se, other than
I'm a little disappointed in the B on this one. This is just interesting. Okay,
everybody's
well,
felt like that.
Maybe I'll have the same feeling and I'll just go home. So in that case, let's wrap up the show. Any final thoughts, Mr. Burns?
Well, hold on. Actually, I'll take a quick look now because they're burning the the smoke. Let's see. Oh, it hasn't come out yet, I don't think. So everybody's looking at the chimney now to see if they've got a pull. Very unlikely that they would.
Oh,
but if you want to look at a chimney, you can do that now because they haven't done it yet.
Is there like a live stream of what's going on?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at BBC News here, from the old country. But yeah, they've just got a camera. The BBC has got a camera like zoomed right in on this chimney. So if you like that kind of thing, if you're interested in chimneys.
So for people who haven't watched Conclave like myself or just don't know how Pope selection works, do you want to give a really quick rundown of how this whole process works, if you know?
So they all go into the Sistine Chapel, which is that exquisitely beautiful building in the Vatican, which I think has the Michelangelo, the God touching Adam.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it
actually
does.
know for sure, but I think so. Anyway, it's a beautiful building. Anyway, so they all go in there, and if you're under the age of 80, you're allowed to vote as a cardinal. A cardinal is like every country tends to have a few cardinals. Every big church sort of thing. So Canada has like 5, I think, or several Canadian cardinals. So if you're one of those cardinals, one of the big boys of the Catholic Church in your country, wherever that is, you go here to the Sistine Chapel, and then it's a very secretive process. Anyway, most like the actual details are completely secret, but they basically have a chat with each other, talk about who's going to be the next pope, and then they vote, they cast a ballot, and they need a certain number. I believe it's a majority, but I actually can't remember. I'm not gonna pretend that I know that. But they need to get a certain number for there to be a successful election, and then the way that they communicate to the world whether or not they've succeeded is they put out black smoke out of this chimney that everyone's looking at. Black smoke means no pope. We're gonna go and talk about it, and then they'll do it tomorrow, and they'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it until till the job is done. But if it's white smoke, then that means we've got a new papa.
Interesting. So much fun. Maybe I'll watch Conclave on my flight later this week. Just so I'm really.
Yeah, do it, mate. Unless they've already picked one. It would be weird if they pick one this quick. But
Yeah.
usually
It feels
it
like
takes
it
a
should
couple
be
of
a
weeks.
long process. It feels like one of those things that should take a while. But yeah. All right. Well, we're officially on Pope Watch. Maybe by the end of the week we'll have something a little more concrete to talk about Pope-wise on this show. But we are officially on Pope Watch 2025. And with that, I think we'll wrap things up for today, May 7th. So on behalf of Iain Burns, my man Rommel behind the controls, my name is Josh Duncan, and thank you kindly for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news, we live news you can trust.